Mekelle University, and Laureate Professor Mituk Hailu, former president of Mekelle University. Please give them a warm welcome to the stage. Thank you. And now, I would like to share the schedule for today's conference. We will begin with a message from the conference organizers and followed by a welcoming speech. The official opening will take place from 9:10 a.m. to 9:20 a.m., after which we will have 3 keynote speeches from 9:20 a.m. up to 10:50 a.m. Following that, there will be a health break and opportunity to visit the Tigray culture show from 10:50 a.m. up to 11:30 a.m. After break, we will resume with the panel presentation from 11:30 a.m. up to 12:45 a.m. and conclude this session with a message from our partners from 12:45 p.m. up to 13 p.m. Lunch will be served from 13 p.m. up to 14 p.m. The afternoon features 3 parallel sessions: biodiversity conservation in Tigray Hall, climate resilience in Abai Hall, and ecotourism development policy governance and innovation in Dalul Hall. The day concludes with a general discussion from 17:15 p.m. up to 17:45 p.m., followed by closing remarks and an award ceremony. After, we will have a dinner program, after which day two will include field engagement activities. I kindly ask everyone to stay on schedule so that we can make the most of this valuable gathering. I now invite Professor Girmay Gavra Samuel, who is Dean of College Dryland Agriculture and Natural Resources and Conference Chair, to deliver a message. Please welcome him to the stage with a warm applause.
Good morning. On behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to warmly welcome all participants to this conference. Allow me to provide you the background to this international conference. The Office of Vice President for Research and Community Engagement at Mekelle University issued a call for proposal to organize a national workshop. In response, the College of Dryland Agriculture and Natural Resource, in collaboration with the Institute of Climate and Society, developed and submitted a proposal to organize a national conference titled Sustainable Future, Integrating Biodiversity Conservation, Ecotourism, and Climate Resilience for Sustainable Development. Our proposal was subsequently accepted. Following this approval, a call for abstract was issued. During this process, our international partners from Europe expressed strong interest in participating in and supporting the conference. In addition, the conference theme attracted growing global attention from researchers and practitioners across diverse disciplines. This interest created a clear demand to elevate the conference from a national to international platform. In response, Mekelle University upgraded the conference to international event to better accommodate broader participation and enhance its scientific and policy impact. As a result, we received 170 abstract submissions from across the world, reflecting a remarkable level of interest, engagement from global research community. From these submissions, 108 in abstract were recommended for oral and poster presentation following a rigorous independent evaluation process established for this purpose. From the accepted abstracts, 40-based abstracts were finally selected for presentation, comprising 20 oral and 20 poster presentation. Accordingly, today, conference featured 40 high-quality research work addressing key issues related to biodiversity conservation, ecotourism, and climate resilience. We prepared a book of abstract containing all accepted papers, which can be accessed electronically via a QR code, which is available in your table. The conference will held over 2 days. The first day is dedicated for technical presentation and scientific discussion, while the second day is reserved for field visit along the route Mekelle, Agula, Hike Mashal, Mekelle. During this field excursion, participants will have the opportunity to observe restored landscape and examine their contribution to local livelihood and ecosystem services. An excursion guideline is also developed to support participants in understanding the key sites and learning objective of the field visit. This can be also accessed using QR codes, which is available in the table. In this conference, we have participants from various parts of Ethiopia, as well as from outside the country, including from Australia, Germany, United Kingdom, Austria. Supporting the institution for the invaluable role in making this event possible. We believe that this conference will provide a meaningful platform for knowledge exchange, scientific dialogue, and the strengthening of partnerships that advances sustainable development. The strength that the interaction and discussion during the conference will generate actionable insight and foster long-term collaboration among participants from different countries and disciplines. Finally, I would like to recognize the financial and technical support of Biodiversity Ethiopia, World Ethiopia, Regreening Africa, We Forest, Ethiopia, Biodiversity Institute, Biodiversity Project Team at Mekelle University, particularly in of Climate and Society, Create Green Africa, Reviewing and Revival. We wish all participants to have a productive and inspiring conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Gurmai Samuel. And now continuing, ladies and gentlemen, it is now my pleasure to invite our esteemed welcoming speaker, Dr. Iyasu Yazo, Vice President for Research and Community Engagement at Mekelle University, to the stage. Please join me in welcoming him as he shares the opening remarks to set the foundation.
Thank you very much, Evan. Good morning, everybody. So I think I'm invited to make a welcoming speech, and I will call our dignitaries who are both attending online as well as here in person. Excellency Dr. Farah, President of Mekelle University. She is in Addis Ababa for an official mission, and she is joining us online. Excellency Professor Yasu Elias, again joining us online. State Minister of Agriculture. Excellency Mr. Fayad, Agricultural Standing Committee, Subcommittee Chairman, the House of Representatives, is also joining online. Excellency Dr. Abdul Kadir, Academic Vice President of Mekelle University. Excellency Professor Laurent Wahid, Founder and former President. Excellency Abu Sakai Ibrahim, Head of the Tigray Environmental Protection and Climate Change Bureau. Excellencies, esteemed deans and directors of our university, esteemed representatives of federal institutions. I see quite a number of representatives from various partners across Ethiopia, as far as actually IBC University. Distinguished keynote speakers, panelists, and scientific network presenters, esteemed staff members, guests, and participants who are both here in person as well as following us or joining us online, and stakeholders. It is my great pleasure to warmly welcome you all to Mekelle and to this international conference on Synergies for Sustainable Future, integrating biodiversity conservation, ecotourism, and climate resilience. On behalf of Mekelle University, particularly the College of Dryland Agriculture and Natural Resources and the Institute of Climate and Society, I would like to express our sincere appreciation for your presence in the conference, both in person and virtually. Your engagement reflects a shared global commitment to addressing some of the most urgent and interconnected challenges of our time. They include biodiversity loss, climate change, and the pursuit of sustainable and inclusive development. We are convening here today at a critical moment when ecosystems are under increasing pressure and climate risks are intensifying across the globe. At the same time, we also recognize growing opportunities through nature-based solutions, innovative conservation approach, and sustainable ecotourism that can contribute to both environmental protection and livelihood improvement. This conference, therefore, provides a timely and important platform for dialogue, knowledge exchange, and partnership. In addition to policymakers, practitioners, and development partners, this event brings together diverse expertise from several countries: Ethiopia, Italy, Germany, Norway, the United Kingdom, Australia, Austria, and Saudi Arabia, as well as from a wide range of disciplines and institutions, in order to foster collaboration and promote integrated solutions that link science, policy, and practice. The three important linkages. We strongly believe that the discussions and interactions over the coming 2 days will not only enrich our understanding, but also contribute to actionable ideas, stronger partnerships, and practical pathways for advancing biodiversity conservation, enhancing climate resilience, and promoting sustainable ecotourism. Finally, please allow me to use this opportunity to sincerely acknowledge the efforts of the organizing committees, partners, reviewers, and support teams whose hard work and dedication have made this conference possible. Now, I will welcome you all again to Mekelle. I invite Dr. Abdul Kadir, Academic Vice President of our university, to officially open this conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Yasu. Excellency Dr. Panahaku. Excellency Dr. Professor Yasu. Thank you. His Excellency Dr. Mr. Tasfaya Bonga, also member and Cultural Standing Committee. Excellency Professor Mutupai. Excellency Mr. Sergei Garantin. Excellency Professor Iyas Yadav, Dr. Iyas Yadav, Excellency Dr. Bahani, Excellency Dr. Professor Girmay Gavasami, Excellency Dr. Nicholas Dean, Excellencies all deans and directors and participants. It is my great honor and privilege to welcome warmly welcome Singapore University for this international conference on synergy for sustainable future, integrating biodiversity, conservation, ecotourism, and climate resilience. On behalf of Mekelle University, I extend my sincere greetings and appreciation to each of you for your presence and commitment to addressing the urgent challenge of our time, and we are truly grateful that you are joining us for this important dialogue. Distinguished participants and ladies and gentlemen, Just a few weeks ago, on April 27 and 29, 2026, Mekelle University hosted an international conference on AI for sustainable development in Africa. That gathering brought together diverse voices for rich discussion and strong collaboration. Today, in less than a month, we are honored to convene once again for another international conference. This continuity reflects our university's growing role as a hub for global dialogue, interdisciplinary partnership, and knowledge exchange on critical development issues. We live in a time of profound environmental change. Biodiversity is declining at alarming rate, and climate change is intensifying pressure on ecosystem and human livelihood, especially in the northern regions such as Sub-Saharan Africa. Those challenges are deeply interconnected and demand integrated responses. Yet, this is also a reason for optimism. Nature-based solutions provide practical pathway to conserve biodiversity, enhance climate change resilience, and advance sustainable development. Ecotourism, in particular, offers a powerful model that links conservation with livelihood, empowering local communities while safeguarding natural and cultural heritages. Realizing those opportunities, however, requires collaboration, coordination of actions, and effective governance. This conference is designed as a platform for international dialogue and partnership. Over the coming days, we will share research, exchange experiences, and explore innovative approaches across biodiversity conservation, climate resilience, ecotourism, governance, and sustainable development. I encourage all participants to engage actively, share insight openly, and build partnerships that will extend well beyond this event. Through such collaborations, knowledge can be translated into meaningful action. We are especially proud to host this conference in Ethiopia, a country endowed with remarkable biodiversity, diverse ecosystems, and rich cultural heritage, yet facing significant environmental and development challenges. This setting offers a powerful context for global discussions on sustainability and resilience. This gathering also presents an important opportunity to bridge science and policy, research and practice, and local and global perspectives. One of the key expected outcomes of this conference is the development of an action framework for integrated biodiversity, climate, and sustainable development, capturing the insights generated here and guiding future collaboration at multiple levels. Before I conclude, I would like to express my sincere appreciations for all partners, sponsors, speakers, and members of the organizing committee for their dedication in making this conference possible. As we officially begin, I invite you to participate fully, collaborate meaningfully, and contribute to shaping practical solutions for more sustainable future. With those remarks, it is my great pleasure to declare this international conference officially open. Thank you. I wish you a productive and successful conference. Thank you again.
Thank you, Dr. Iyasu Yazo and Dr. Abdul Qadir Kadir for their welcoming speech and official opening speech. And now, moving on, Dr. Tesfaye Mekelle will now facilitate the upcoming keynote presentations of the keynote speakers whom will be attending virtually, guiding us through his insightful session. Let us give a warm applause as we invite him to the stage. Please welcome Dr. Tesfaye Mekelle.
We have three keynote speakers. The first keynote speaker is Professor Tony Rinaldo. I'm going to introduce Professor Tony Rinaldo. Professor Tony Rinaldo is going to present on the title Foundations for Biodiversity Conservation, Ecotourism and Climate Resilience. Before he gives his keynote speaker, his speech, I'm going to introduce you his bio, a brief bio about Professor Tony Rinaldo. Professor Tony Rinaldo served as an agriculturalist and missionary with serving in mission in Niger Republic from 1981 to 1999. There, he oversaw long-term rural development and periodic large-scale relief programs. Through this, he contributed to a transformation in how Nigerians farm and the reforesting of over 6 million hectares of land, which still inspires regreening movements globally. For his 18 years service to humanity and the environment, the government of Niger awarded him its highest honor for an expatriate, the Order of Agriculture with Merit. Since joining World Vision Australia in 1999, Tony initiated and oversaw important land regeneration projects worldwide. Serving now as Principal Climate Action Advisor, he promotes forestry and agroforestry initiatives globally within the World Vision Partnership and beyond. He is widely recognized for his influential contribution to heightened international awareness on the impact and efficacy and uptake of simple, low-cost, scalable methods of reforestation, known as FMNR, Farmer-Managed Natural Regeneration. Among major awards, Tony and FMNR have recently received the 2018 Right Livelihood Award for demonstrating on a large scale on how drylands can be greened at minimal cost, improving the livelihoods of millions of people, and the World Future Council Agroecology Award. In 2019, Tony was appointed as a member of the Order of Australia. This is a brief bio of Professor Tony Rinaldo. Now I will give the floor to Professor Tony Rinaldo. Welcome to the August gathering. You have 30 minutes.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, it's audible.
Thank you. So I appreciate that warm welcome, and good morning, distinguished guests, respected dignitaries, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. And I send warm greetings from Melbourne, Australia, though I'd much prefer to be with you in person. As I look at the theme of this conference, and I want to focus on just two common threads for success or failure. And these threads are landscapes and people. How we engage with these two threads, I believe, is foundational to success in creating prosperous and sustainable futures, in not only conserving biodiversity, which implies mere survival, but enabling ecological flourishing, in fostering profitable ecotourism industry, and not only building climate resilience, but also helping to mitigate against climate change. The world is facing a perfect storm: land degradation, climate change, biodiversity loss, even as the need to feed a growing global population continues to grow. But time is short, and available money for addressing this storm is limited. Conventional approaches alone are often too slow or too expensive for us to make a meaningful impact to avert disaster in the time that we have left. According to the UNCCD, nearly 20% of Ethiopia's landmass and 40% of the global landmass is degraded or are degraded. Current attempts to reverse this degradation are noble, but they are underfunded, and achievements fall well short of targets. For example, by some estimates, for the Great Green Wall Initiative to achieve its 100 million hectare restoration target, it will take an additional 40 years and cost between $30 and $70 billion extra in funding. If people's beliefs and behavior are a basis for environmental and climatic destruction, then technological approaches alone are insufficient. And if people are largely responsible for the crises that we face, then working with people has to be a major part of the solution. A witness and a victim of the American Dust Bowl experience said, "You didn't try something different, but you just tried harder. The same thing that you did previously, the same thing that didn't work. You just repeated, but tried harder." And this was my experience in Niger Republic in the 1980s. What had been a biodiverse dryland forest with wildlife, with permanent springs and fertile farms in the clearings, within 2 short decades, this landscape was reduced to a position of barely being able to support life. And I witnessed this downward spiral of degradation, of poverty, and of human despair. Even though the best practice approaches that I was using, approaches to land restoration, they were slow, they were expensive, and they were failing. Despite that, I kept repeating the same approaches year after year, but each year I tried harder. Working harder did not bring success then. It isn't bringing success now, at least not at the scale nor the speed that's required. Our current best efforts, admirable as they are not enough to meet the challenges we face at the speed and scale required. I studied the restoration manuals. I consulted experts. I experimented with different seed species, different timing of planting, different materials. Despite all of that, nothing worked in a sustainable or economically viable way. More than 80% of the seedlings that we planted died. And to add insult to injury, the very community whom we attempted to help called me the crazy white farmer. They weren't interested in planting trees, and understandably so. They were often hungry, and they were certainly very poor. At times, I wondered whether I was running a losing race, and some of you may feel the same at times with your own efforts. On one of those depressing days, I shot up a heartfelt prayer, simply asking for help and insight for what to do. And the answer came as a great surprise. Across vast areas of Niger, and indeed around the world, lies what I call an underground forest. And this forest exists in the form of living tree stumps, roots, and dormant seeds. In that moment, everything changed. And I realized I wasn't fighting desertification or climate change. It wasn't a question of how large a budget or which technology I had. Everything that I needed for restoration was literally at my feet. Every year, some of these seeds germinate and the stumps resprout, only to be slashed, burnt, grazed, or ploughed under. If I could convince land users to work with nature, with this natural resource literally at our feet, instead of fighting it and destroying it year after year, then I believed restoration would be relatively easy. The method developed has come to be called farmer-managed natural regeneration, or FMNR. It involves the selection and management of trees and shrubs growing from seeds, from roots, and from stumps already existing in the soil. I won't go through the steps in detail. At the end of my presentation, there's a link to a website with manuals, with videos, and free training courses. So I won't go into the details here and use the time just to speak about what unfolded. So on one level, FMNR is a technical approach, basically coppicing or pollarding and managing the growth of these emerging trees. On another level, FMNR is a development approach, because if people are going to engage and implement this approach, there needs to be awareness creation, capacity building, enabling, and empowerment. So it's equally a development approach. Nigerian farmers began creating agroforest parklands when they started experimenting with FMNR. With the improved microclimate and soil conditions, they are able to grow more and different types of crops and livestock. And with greater biodiversity on their farmlands, their resilience against climatic and environmental shocks increased. As trees returned to these barren landscapes, habitat was created for a wide range of life forms which had previously disappeared. In terms of biodiversity conservation, this is very significant when you take into account that some 40% of the Earth's landmass is under agriculture or pastoral management, and much of that has been cleared of trees. National parks alone are insufficient to ensure biodiversity survival. And so encouraging natural regeneration on agricultural and pastoral land provides conditions for biodiversity to flourish and to do this at scale, even as farm productivity and livelihood benefits are increased. I've described how FMNR is both technical and a development approach. If we convince enough families, enough communities across a landscape, automatically FMNR becomes a landscape level restoration and livelihoods approach. And this is what happened in Niger. Over the following 20 years following introducing FMNR, it spread at a rate of 250,000 hectares per year for 20 years, resulting in 5 million hectares of farmland and regenerating 200 million trees across that landscape. And many livelihood benefits and food security benefits to the people. On a household level, gross incomes increased by about $1,000 per year. In total, across the 5 million hectares, equaling $900 million every year, benefiting 4.5 million people. Without improved seed, without irrigation, without artificial fertilizers, just by virtue of now working with nature instead of destroying it and fighting against it, Nigerian farmers are growing an additional 500,000 tons of grain every year, enough to feed 2.5 million people. To say this is revolutionary is an understatement. A 3-year study conducted in 3 West African countries found that $160 million was spent on tree planting, resulting in a net restoration of some 20,000 hectares. And if you do the maths on that, it costs roughly $8,000 per hectare. It's just not economically viable, especially when you consider the scale of destruction across the world. By comparison, over a 20-year period, and at a cost of under $10 million, in Niger, more than 5 million hectares were restored at a cost of less than $2 per hectare. And so in Niger, we began to witness this grand reversal, a virtuous upward spiral of regeneration, relative prosperity, and the restoration of hope. In 2004, World Vision Ethiopia embarked on an ambitious project applying the principles of FMNR, in this instance not to farmland, but on communal land, restoring 2,728 hectares of biodiverse natural forest and linking this to the carbon markets. What had been largely depleted landscape recovered quickly as vegetation responded to FMNR. Wildlife began to return. Interestingly, even though this was not agricultural land, agricultural productivity skyrocketed. World Vision entered this region during the severe drought and famine of 1984. Despite doing excellent work for over 20 years, every year, we were obliged to provide some degree of food aid, largely due to the combined impact of climate change, land degradation, and population growth. 6 years following the implementation of FMNR in Humbo, this historically food aid dependent community sold 104 tons of grain to the World Food Programme. How could this be? In wet years, prior to revegetation, water runoff, mud flows, even boulders would cascade down the mountain, causing severe erosion, washing away valuable seed and fertilizer. In dry years, not only would the crops perish and livestock suffer, there was no backup, no fallback in the form of wild harvest. FMNR reduced these major risks associated with farming: flood, drought, insect attack. Farmer confidence grew, and they began to invest in improvements that boosted their yields. People began to access wild foods, traditional medicines, fuel wood, building poles. Humbo to this day has a thriving fodder market, and many farmers today able to fatten and to buy and sell and to fatten livestock. Since inception, over 400,000 tons of carbon dioxide have been sequestered in this project, and the communities have earned in excess of $800,000 from the sale of carbon. In a nearby sister project, previously, communities suffered from alternate drought and flood scenarios. There were instances where whole families were buried alive under landslips. Following regeneration, there have been no further landslips, and the land is rehydrating. 12 dry springs returned, and 1 new spring appeared. 9 of these springs are permanent. And with the return of trees, return of birds, and even a waterfall, the community built 2 huts and created a camping area in order to attract tourists. Ethiopia is one of our 4 what we call scale-up catalytic countries, where we have rolled out a movement-building approach to scaling. And this approach involves communication and advocacy, freely sharing technical information, partnering with government, with NGOs, faith-based organizations, and environmental groups, and assisting in the FMNR institutionalization in sectors such as education and agriculture. To date, nearly 870,000 hectares have been restored. And while World Vision is definitely implementing FMNR in its own projects, the emphasis of this project is in influencing others and partnering. Thus, 87% of the restoration has been implemented by partners, 754,000 hectares. We're very pleased with the progress to date, and I'll single out just a few of these on this list. Nearly 24,000 people directly engaged, 5,600 trainers trained, 49,000 practitioners have been trained. So we're very pleased with the impact and reaching and often surpassing targets in this project. This project actively seeks to partner with others. We have over 32 external partners. 21 universities have incorporated FMNR into their natural resource management or agroforestry curricula. FMNR has been included in environmental school clubs. Of significance, World Vision Ethiopia is working with the Ministry of Education towards endorsing an FMNR policy brief. On the back of these successes, World Vision globally is promoting FMNR around the world and has introduced the concept into over 40 countries. FMNR is spreading in Latin America, Asia Pacific, Africa, and the Middle East, and momentum is growing. In the Amazon basin, for example, the goal is the restoration of degraded land and conservation of existing forests totaling 25 million hectares using FMNR. When farmers first adopt FMNR, very often they lack confidence, they're unsure if this will negatively impact their agricultural crops. And often they will harvest the trees within just 1 year or 2 years. What I've noticed is that as they gain experience and confidence and see that actually agricultural production increases, many farmers are allowing the trees to grow to maturity. Some don't even harvest the whole tree, but selectively cut branches on a rotational basis. And this is very good for providing habitat for biodiversity. I've even witnessed some farmers going out of their way, providing water to attract birds into their farmland. This was in Senegal. And one case in Chad, where the farmer protected a snake that was living in a tree on his farm. And he said, the snake has its work to do, it controls pests, and I don't bother it, and it doesn't bother me when I have my work to do. I've had the privilege over the years to introduce this concept into over 40 countries. And in those years, nobody has ever said, Tony, you ruined my land, or you ruined my livelihood. And I just want to share 4 key lessons that I've learned over this time in closing. And so the first is the power of nature to self-heal. In my dictionary, I don't have the term wasteland. I only consider land in terms of potential land. And if we remove the constraints, constant overgrazing, regular burning, complete ploughing of the whole field, removal of woody biomass, if we remove or alter those constraints, nature is willing and ready to self-heal and to do it rapidly and at low cost. Secondly, we often see people as the problem. Haven't they caused the deforestation? Don't they light fires and continuously graze their animals on this land? True, but if they're the problem, they are also the solution. And in fact, we can't succeed without enlisting their help. People need to be seen as the solution, not the problem. When we create awareness and build their capacity, when people are confident that they will benefit from the work of their hands through legal ownership or through legal user rights, when people are empowered to manage threats through co-creation of bylaws supported by authorities, as we witnessed in Niger, people are more likely to restore, protect, and sustainably manage their natural resource base. In Ethiopia, there are 12 to 15 million smallholder households. This could mean up to 80 million people with potential to restore their land in Ethiopia alone. Globally, it's estimated that there are over 500 million smallholder households. This is a vast, largely untapped means of restoration at scale. And we've begun seeing people as we have to begin seeing people as the solution, not as the problem. Thirdly, nobody wishes for a crisis, but crises happen. How can we draw the best possible outcome from disaster? Can we design relief programs which catalyze resilience and strength through supporting awareness creation and environmental restoration? This is what we did in Niger in the 1984 crisis. We instigated a Food for Work program that entrenched FMNR in the community. And I want to acknowledge and give praise to Tigray, to the NGOs, to the government. You're known globally for your use of relief, cash for work, food for work, for large-scale restoration in your region. The fourth and final point I want to make is to highlight the difference between projects and movements. When I joined World Vision after my Niger experience, I was racing around the world trying to implement projects as fast as I could. Projects are good, but at best they can only give a gradual, slow increase in the spread of a technology. Projects are bound by budgets, by timeframes, and by geographic limits. Conversely, if we set about to initiate movements, they don't have such constraints. Movements have the potential to move very rapidly, exponentially from person to person. And I believe this is what we witnessed in Niger. And increasingly in countries like Ethiopia and neighboring countries, we're beginning to see this type of movement escalate. So in closing, I invite you to please avail yourself of the free resources on this website, manuals, free online training courses, research findings, videos, and blogs. And please take the opportunity to seek out and speak to World Vision experts who are participating in this conference. They have a wealth of experience at implementing FMNR for several decades now. So I wish you a very successful conference, and I thank you for allowing me to contribute. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Tony. Just to recap some few points Professor Tony has presented. Professor Tony has given us a speech on FMNR against the conventional method. He's given us that the land has suffered from degradation, and that as a solution, he suggested as working with people and working on underground forest is a solution. He has given us some points regarding the FMNR as a technical approach. He mentioned that this approach is developmental, it's a landscape level livelihood, and it's revolutionary, has an impact on wildlife and food. He has also given us that Ethiopia is on a progress, scaling up this approach. And other countries such as Bolivia and Brazil following the footstep. It has given us also some key lessons, such as power to nature to self-heal, power to affect landscape, level of change, and crisis channels of change. He has also given us some ideas about power of movements versus projects. Movements can really have change. These are some of the points I have captured. Now I move to the second keynote speaker. I'm going to give you a brief bio about the second keynote speaker. The second keynote speaker is Professor Julian Bayliss on a title, The Importance of Evidence-Based Fieldwork and Ecological Connectivity in Protected Area Management. Professor Julian Bayliss is a conservation scientist and ecologist with over 30 years of experience in environmental management across Africa. He specializes in protected area and natural resource management and has led major biodiversity projects. His work spans ecosystem modeling, biodiversity surveys, habitat and species conservation, the creation of new protected areas, and environmental risk assessments with over 40 peer-reviewed publications in international journals. Recently, he laid on the creation of a new mountain ecoregion for Africa between Mozambique and Malawi as a result of 20 years of fieldwork and numerous scientific expeditions. Within Ethiopia, Professor Bayliss was the chief technical advisor on a GF6 protected area project through EBI and EWCA. He's currently focusing on aspects of ecological connectivity for southwestern Ethiopia. Professor Bayliss is a fellow of the Linnean Society, the Royal Entomological Society, and the Royal Geographical Society, and is a visiting professor of ecology at Oxford Brookes University. Professor Julian Bayliss, you have 30 minutes. Welcome to this August gathering. Thank you.
Thank you, Yame. Good morning, everybody. Ndete Adarak, Salamnu, Danenu. I am going to share my screen. Let's have a look. And please tell me, are we able to see that if I go from the beginning? Let's have a look. Let me just make sure I've got my screen on. Hold on a minute. Your screen is paused. Sorry, a minute. There we go. Can you see my screen? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen. Can you please make it in slide mode?
Slide mode. Okay, sorry, hold on. How do I do that a minute? Sorry about this. Let me just see how I share this slide mode. From beginning, from custom slideshow. Is that it? No. Okay. Can you see that? Is that better? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Let me start then. Good morning, everybody, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to present to you this morning at this very important international conference on the synergies of sustainable futures, focusing on biodiversity conservation, ecotourism, and climate resilience. The title of my presentation today is The Importance of Evidence-Based Fieldwork and Ecological Connectivity in Protected Area Management. I think I've been introduced fairly well, but who am I and what do I do? My name is Julian. I'm a conservation scientist, an African ecologist, a professor of ecology with over 35 years of work experience across Africa. And I specialize in biodiversity and protected area management, ecological modeling, and natural resource management. And during this time, and throughout the fieldwork, I've discovered over 30 new species to science, including bats, reptiles, amphibians, crabs, and plants through a series of more than 50 scientific expeditions. So I'd like to talk to you today about this and about the work I've been involved with and the results that I've found. And today's presentation therefore has the two themes with practical examples and case studies on implementation. And the first part of this presentation will be on the importance of evidence-based fieldwork. And then the second part will be on the importance of ecological connectivity in protected area management, building on what Tony was talking about before, that I think he raised the point that within protected areas, it's almost impossible to conserve all the biodiversity just in protected areas. And it's a bigger issue than that. And that's where connectivity will certainly play a big role. We'll come to that in a bit. So coming to the first theme on the importance of evidence-based fieldwork, why is it important? What does it entail? And what can the data be used for? It's necessary to collect sufficient data in order to better understand the ecology of an area. And such data is important because it supports the management planning and the decision-making that you might make about these sites. This often entails expeditions, scientific expeditions, or even social economic expeditions to inaccessible and remote locations. And such fieldwork involves walking long distances, traveling over very bad roads, carrying all the equipment to make remote field camps. It generally involves teams of national and international scientists and experts working together and sharing the knowledge. And I think that's important because there's value from both the national expertise and also from the international expertise. And I've always found that the best expeditions and the best results come from a meeting of minds and a joining of shared experiences. These data then can be used for describing new species, creating new protected areas, or even declaring new ecoregions. Here, we can see what some of the roads look like, trying to get to these remote and inaccessible places. This is some footage from an expedition that we did in Tanzania a couple of years ago. And I'm sure you've all been on similar roads somewhere in Africa at some point in your experience and fieldwork. And it also involves crossing dangerous bridges or sort of bridges that are reasonably unstable. And so there's a lot of risks. The point is there's a lot of risks involved in fieldwork as well. But generally, when you get to the end of the road, you park your cars in the local village where the road stops, and you go and see the local chief, who then organizes the community to help carry all of your equipment up to remote fields camps, which may be in rainforest, wet forest, upland grasslands and mountains, or even in woodlands. And then you undertake your field work of collecting, sampling, recording the evidence base of the biodiversity and other aspects of the ecology with a team of national and international scientists. Sometimes you use technological tools, such as camera trapping. Here's some footage from Malawi. This is on top of Mangochi Mountain. And camera traps are useful because you can leave them there for 3 months, 6 months, even a year, and then go back and collect the data at a later date. Likewise, they can be used for assessing catching poachers. as well as recording animals. And this is from a mountain in the top of Mozambique. That's a hyrax he's carrying there. But resulting from this fieldwork, you can discover species new to science, such as the species of snake, which I discovered. The middle one is a species of bush viper, which I discovered because I stepped on it, which is one way to find a new species of snake. Likewise, new species of chameleon. These are all from Mozambique, and new species of butterfly. So what can you do with this data? Well, such data is important because it can justify decision making and planning. And the data can be used for site-based conservation, describing new species to science, creating new protected areas, and even declaring new ecoregions. So I'd like to give you the case study of one of these new ecoregions that was previously mentioned, and you using the evidence-based fieldwork for defining a new ecoregion. An ecoregion is important because it can integrate conservation planning at large scale. And it's important to recognize these sites with shared geology, evolutionary history, and characteristic species assemblages. And such areas are often characterized by high levels of endemism, in other words, species found nowhere else in the world. And in order to do this, you need to do this evidence-based fieldwork to prove it. So, based on the data that we collected from 20 years of fieldwork, which is more than 20 scientific expeditions and 100 scientists with 20 institutions, for this area of northern Mozambique and southern Malawi, we discovered 217 endemic species of plants and animals. And then based on that, we felt after 20 years, we had the evidence base to justify declaring a new ecoregion, which was published a couple of years ago. And that ecoregion is the Southeast African montane archipelago in northern Mozambique. And you can see the map of the mountains and where it is in Africa. And there are 30 mountains in this ecoregion. And like I say, based on the fieldwork of over 20 years, consisting of 30 mountain sites to the core region, 9 in Malawi, 21 in Mozambique, they shared similar characteristics of humid evergreen forest, upland grasslands, climatic influences, and high levels of shared endemism. But like I say, it's a combination of factors. It's not just the biodiversity, it's the geology, it's the climate. And if you have a look at these climate maps, if you look at the one on the far left, you can see SEMA and the orange circle. And you can see a precipitation or an annual rainfall map clearly defining the boundary of these mountains. Here we have some of the sites. So you can see these are the mountains in Malawi. These are some of the mountains in Mozambique. But it's highly threatened. So this is where we need to bring in conservation action. So since 2000, SEMA has lost 14% of its primary humid forest and up to 35% in some sites. And the main threats really are from shifting agriculture and fire. But in order to address this, we need to find balance between, the needs of the local people and global priorities for biodiversity conservation. I'd now like to turn to the second part of this presentation, which is the importance of ecological connectivity in protected area management. Ecological connectivity refers to the unrestricted movement of species and the flow of ecosystem processes across landscapes. And this is a critical aspect of effective protected area management. And this case study that I'm going to present is going to be within Ethiopia. But for the importance of ecological connectivity in protected area management, it's important for biodiversity conservation because it allows gene flow between populations to maintain genetic diversity. It's important, wildlife corridors, it's important for biodiversity conservation because it connects landscape and ensures species that require large habitats can migrate through a larger landscape. It's important for climate and ecosystem resilience. The adaptation to climate change enables species to shift ranges in response to climate change. It's important for protecting ecosystem services such as water purification, pollination, and carbon, all vital to human well-being and climate mitigation. It's important for reducing the edge effects of protected areas. Essentially, it increases the edge, by connecting two protected areas, you're making one protected area essentially. And it's important for societal benefits such as recreation and tourism. The ecological connectivity enhances the quality of natural areas, boosts ecotourism, and that can provide economic benefits to local communities. And it's also important for integrating landscape scale conservation to incorporate more sustainable outcomes for managing natural resources. So this case study is identifying ecological connectivity in southwestern Ethiopia. When I say southwestern Ethiopia, I refer to the 4 regional states of Gambela, southwest Ethiopia, South Ethiopia, and Sidama. And the aim of the study was to identify priority ecological corridors connecting the protected area network. Southwest Ethiopia is important as it includes the Eastern Afro montane hotspot and part of the Ethiopian mountain forest ecoregion. And a lot of the rare and threatened species are associated with the wet forests that occur there. As such, you've got 40 plant and animal species, 40 plant species, 26 mammal species, and 34 bird species, all listed on the IUCN Red List of threatened species. So looking at a map of Africa, we can see Ethiopia and we can see the 4 regional states. Iconic animals are things like the African wild dog from Omo, the eastern black and white colobus monkeys from the wet forests. We have your endangered southwestern Ethiopian mountain adder, also from the wet forest. You have your endemic yellow-fronted parrot from the wet forests. Likewise, tree frogs and flowers such as the Amaryllis Scototus nutans. These are all generally found within these wet forests. So the point is the wet forests are where you find the majority of your rare, threatened and endemic plants and animals. But you've got high population pressure, especially around Jima, Alba Minch and the Washa. High population pressure is shown on this map in red. And if we look at some of the population sizes or the population estimates, and the total area, these 4 regional states occupy 120,000 kilometers squared and almost 18 million people. The protected area network in southwest Ethiopia and the whole of Ethiopia, including Tigray, would be classified following the IUCN nomenclature of protected areas, of which there are 6 categories. For example, wildlife sanctuaries will fall under category 4, which is habitat species management areas. Likewise, community conservation areas would fall in the same category, while controlled hunting areas and national forest would fall under category 6, protected areas with sustainable use of natural resources. So to identify these priority ecological corridors, we followed a systematic approach of selection based on the sites of highest biodiversity value and quality, which often correlates to these protected areas. First of all, we mapped these protected areas and used these as a guide to identify the land in between the sites of the highest biodiversity and potential priority ecological corridors. Once the priority ecological corridors were identified, we used major watercourses. We identified the major watercourses between the protected areas within the general area of a priority ecological corridor to act as the corridor. And then we buffered these by 50 meters, 100 meters, and 200 meters either side. And then we eventually selected those watercourses with the least population density surrounding them as the priority ecological corridor. I will run through this graphically now, so you'll be able to see exactly what we were talking about. So this is the map of southwestern Ethiopia of the 4 regional states, and this map shows the protected area network that we find within this region. Each color of each polygon represents a different class or a different category of protected area. And these are, for example, your controlled hunting areas, your national forest priority areas, national parks, wildlife reserves, and even UNESCO man and biosphere reserves. So what we did next is, because these are all different categories and all different types of protected area, we then we created a blanket coverage where each protected area was regarded as the same. So this is like just one cover of protected area. regardless of the class and the management type. And that then identified the gaps in between the protected areas. So these gaps in between the protected area network are the first take on a possible priority ecological corridor. And these are outlined in these red circles. We then associated this with some land cover data, and we looked at the habitat in between. And then we started to prioritize some of these ecological corridors. So first of all, we then looked at just the protected areas that were wet forest or national forest priority areas or tropical important plant areas. Why? Because these are the areas that contain the majority of the rare, threatened, and endemic species. Wet forest is, or rainforest, contains 50%, at least 50% of all terrestrial living organisms. So these are the sites of the highest biodiversity. So this is an ecological modeling approach. So we came up with these three sites here, these three priority corridors out of a suite of potential ecological corridors between the protected area network. And then we have a look at each of these. This is we look at this under different imagery. We can see that this is the Gudafeda to Sheko Forest corridor. And then we can bring in things like Google Maps, Sentinel spatial data. We can then overlay the Google buildings layer. So each of these black dots now represents a building. And that is a proxy for human population, for density, in other words, which is important because if you're going to be joining two protected areas through a landscape which is not protected, then you need to know, what's going to be viable and what's not going to be viable, and where you want the path of least resistance, if you like. And here you can see that we're using the river network as the corridors, and we've buffered this river network by 50 meters, 100 meters, and 200 meters either side. And there's a couple of river networks there. One goes through a very highly densely community lands, and the other one just to the northwest of it, that I've ringed in an orange circle, has going through a less populated area. So that would be the one we would choose to join these two very important forest sites. We have a look at the next corridor, then that was joining the Sheko Forest and Mount Kakaha. And there we can see some of the GIS maps and the satellite maps, and then we bring in the Sentinel data and the Google Maps and the Google Buildings data, and we can see that it's heavily populated. And that's because this is the road from Misan to Feri down to the border. It goes in between these two sites, and there's a lot of people there. We look at the river networks and we highlight two possible river corridors. And the one in the southwest would appear to be going through lands with fewer people, less buildings, less population. So that would be the one we would look to choose as a priority ecological corridor to help join up these two sites. If we look at the third of these priority ecological corridors, this is over towards Arbor Minch, the Godole Kembe area. And again, we can see that this area is very heavily populated. So each of these black dots represents buildings. And we can see that there is one river corridor that is potentially viable for joining these sites. And that's the one I've highlighted there in the orange. Priority ecological corridors. Let me just talk a little bit about ecotourism, because ecological connectivity also relates to ecotourism. Ecological connectivity enhances the quality of natural areas and can boost ecotourism by providing economic benefits to local communities. Ecotourism within the southwestern Ethiopian area, there's a wide range of habitat types from floodplains, ancient grasslands, savannas, that contain lions, elephants, leopards, cheetahs. Gambella is part of the largest mammal migration on Earth, with the white-eared cob migration, some 6 million animals moving between South Sudan and southwest Ethiopia. That makes it the largest terrestrial animal migration in the world. It is double the size of the wildebeest migration in the Serengeti in Tanzania. And this was really only known, this wasn't really known until very recently when they started doing transects and counting these animals, and they used cameras with AI machine learning counting software, which were then able to accurately or reasonably accurately then count all the animals that they saw through the footage. They then repeated this study down in the Serengeti just to make sure that they used the same methodology when making the claim that this was the largest animal migration in the world. But also in southwest Ethiopia, there's these rainforests, these wet forests that I've been talking about, which contain rare birds, forests, and are great for mountain trekking and waterfalls and vistas. And there's obviously a link with cultural tourism as well. Lots of indigenous communities, the Omo Valley tribes are famous, but there's also tribes of honey collectors up in the forest. There's plenty of ecotourism potential. Here we can see an aerial view of some of the white-eared kob, the big, large animal migration of 6 million animals linking Ethiopia to South Sudan. But if we have a look at the visitor statistics of these national parks, Omo, Margo, Inchazar, Jebera, Tachura, and Gambela, we can see they're reasonably stable for foreign visitors until about 2019, 20, 21, 22. And that coincided largely with the global pandemic, the COVID global pandemic, and numbers crashed to these national parks. Likewise, with domestic visitors, we can see that in 2019-20, from 2020 to 21, we saw a big decrease in domestic or national visitors to these parks. But then there's been a sharp increase following 2021, 22, especially to Inchazar National Park down by Arbor Minch. That seems to be a very popular place to go for Ethiopians. However, if we look at the entrance fees to these protected areas, we can see they vary significantly between those protected areas under regional control and those under federal control. For example, Jebera Tachura National Park charges $30 entrance fee per day for your foreign visitor. Margo National Park charges $10 a day for your foreign visitor. But Nchazar National Park and Omo National Park are still bound to the proclamation from 1998, I believe, that charges 90 Ethiopian birr per day, which is less than $1, as you well know. And I think when it was actually made in the proclamation, that was equivalent to $10. So the total income to these parks, if we map that over time, we can see this large dip again around about 2020 following the COVID pandemic. And now it's starting to increase again from 22 onwards, and it's picking up again, which is good news. So ecotourism strategic recommendations would be things like revise the park, the protected area entrance and guiding fees in line with current inflation. I think that's very important. You could see some of the statistics I gave. Develop a strategic roadmap with marketing through a series of ecotourism packages, linking sites. Ecotourism investment priorities should focus on tourist accommodation at these facilities. So within most protected areas, accommodation is almost non-existent for visitors. And that's something that needs to be invested in. And there's marketing as well, and linking, like I say, linking these destinations together as in a series of packages. And the local communities could be involved in ecotourism, such as sustainable livelihood options, arts, crafts, cultural experiences. And they could also be involved in helping to manage these priority ecological corridors between protected areas. So it's this integrated management approach, which is important. So conclusions, I'll finish up now with a couple of slides. So coming back to the first theme of my presentation, the importance of evidence-based fieldwork, it's important to understand the biodiversity and ecology of an area better. So evidence-based fieldwork helps you understand the biodiversity and ecology of an area better. And why is this important? Because it provides the data upon which you can make accurate management decisions. And this can then lead to important steps such as describing new species to science, but also creating new protected areas and even, creating a new ecoregion for Africa. I mean, that's not something that happens every day. That's like a once-in-a-lifetime event. And like I said, that was based on 20 years of fieldwork. But the point is, the importance of the field work, the importance of the data can lead to these results. And coming to ecological connectivity, it's important because it underpins biodiversity conservation. It enhances ecosystem resilience and ecosystem services. It promotes ecotourism by enhancing the quality of the natural areas and thus supports local communities and effective management, and it creates effective management strategies in maintaining and restoring connectivity. And also it fosters collaboration among many stakeholders because you're moving between protected areas. We're in a completely open landscape with you've got the communities, you've got many NGOs, you've got government departments, you've got everybody sort of working in this area, and it brings them together for sustainable and integrated management practices. So I think I'll leave it there. Ama Senegalahu, thank you very much. And I hope you have a wonderful conference, and I hope you can take some of these thoughts and ideas forward with the work that you're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Bailey. Thank you for effectively using your time. Just to recap some few points of the presentation, the speech. Professor Bailey has made a speech on two themes. One is on the importance of evidence-based fieldwork, and the other is on the importance of ecological connectivity in protected area management. Regarding with the first theme, he has given us pointers such as why it is important, what it entails, and what the data can be used for. He gives us pointers such as the points deriving to accessible places, inaccessible places, crossing dangerous bridges, airing fieldwork implements, that it is through a difficult and endeavor that this work can be achieved. He has given us that this can be used to discover new species, and the data can be used for decision making and defining an eco-chain. I think the second, he has given us some pointers about the importance of ecological connectivity, such as biodiversity conservation, climate and ecosystem resilience, mitigation of fragmented efforts, societal benefits, and integrated land use planning. Has also given us points such as population pressure, which has impact on this connectivity. Has given us some points with regard to protected areas in Ethiopia, national priorities, priority areas, ecological corridors, some 3 ecological corridors, and he has given us a point regarding the ecotourism potential in southwest Ethiopia. Now I move to the third speaker. The third speaker is Professor Laureate Metuku Haile. I'm going to give you a brief bio about Professor Metuku. Professor Metuku Haile is the recipient of the Future 21, that is the Global Confederation of Higher Education Associations for the Agricultural and Life Sciences. World Award, Agricultural Prize. The Tuku is a professor of soil science and sustainable land environment science. He has got his diploma in environmental science, his BSc in plant science, and MSc in agronomy at Addis Ababa University. And he has got his PhD in soil science from Ghent University, Belgium. He served at Haromaya University as Associate Dean of the School of Graduate Studies and as Academic Vice President, as a Dean of the newly established College of Dryland Agriculture and Natural Resources in Mekelle. He initiated the transformation of the college into Mekelle University College and eventually to Mekelle University. He served as the founder and first president of Mekelle University. He taught courses at the BSc, MSc, and PhD levels. He advised, supervised, and promoted MSc and PhD students, several of them. He acted as internal and external examiner of dissertations for students at national and international PhD defenses. Moreover, he acts as an invited reviewer of articles of prominent accredited journals. In his research endeavors, he has published several articles in peer-reviewed journals, authored and co-authored books and proceedings. He was instrumental in designing and implementing several international partners for capacity building and teaching, research, and community engagement. He is a member of the Ethiopian Academy of Sciences, including several national and international professional societies. He also served as the Deputy Permanent Delegate of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia to UNESCO. He is awarded an honorary doctorate from Bahar Dar University. Now, I call upon Professor Tuku to take the floor and give speech. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tesfaye, for the introduction. I would like to acknowledge right from the beginning for utilizing resources for my keynote address from institutions which have been working with us, notably Ecotourism, PENHA, WeForest, Plan Ethiopia, Biodiversity Institute, Ministry of Agriculture, and others. In this keynote address, I would like you to look into this outline, and in most cases, I'm raising questions rather than prescribing what is to be done. On Monday, I had the opportunity to visit the South Forest with my colleague, Dr. Aklilu of WeForest. And this was a reflection to me on what has happened in this area the last 2-3 years, and gave me also an opportunity to reflect back although Dr. Abdulkader is not here, some 15 years back, we had been with Dr. Abdulkader to the Dasa that Garab forest area to initiate what we call the registration of Dasa that Garab as man and biosphere reserve. Amazingly, this is progressing well, and 3 weeks back, we had been in Addis Ababa at a meeting organized by Biodiversity Institute in collaboration with Ethiopia and all the consortium, including Mekelle University and other institutions, to look on what we can do in terms of registering several reserve areas into this category. We have taken all our assignments, and hopefully by January next year, we might be able to develop our protocols and submit it also to UNESCO. Of course, as an introduction, I would like to see drylands are areas which face great water scarcity. Later on, I'll show you a map on the aridity index of Ethiopia. They cover over 40% of the Earth's land surface and are home to more than 2 billion people. Why am I interested in the drylands? You all remember when we first established the College of Dryland Agriculture under the Momona tree, that had been also my passion and compassion, of course, to see drylands of Ethiopia developed to contribute to the economy of this country, not only in research, capacity building, but also in restoring degraded lands. So that is why I'm interested very much in having that. They are highly adapted to climatic variability and water stress, but also extremely vulnerable to damaging human activities. Anthropogenic activities are damaging our drylands. Also, the opportunities for development are very much, such as deforestation, overgrazing, and unsustainable agricultural practices, which cause land degradation. Drylands in Ethiopia cover about 75% of the land mass, and agropastoral systems are among the major production systems in the country. I quote Dr. Kidana George, we call him Giorgio. He passed away 2 months back. He had been also the icon and promoter of the development of research and innovation in, at the back of also on what can be done on restoring the biodiversity and economic activities of the drylands. It is important to note here that drylands include all areas where the climate is classified as dry, subhumid, semi-arid, and arid, according to the Ministry of Agriculture, encompassing a great deal of ecological diversity and varying potential for production. On the aridity index of Ethiopia, you can see on how we are saying it's more than 75%, except the blue areas, a bit of the yellow areas, all the territorial areas are drylands. And focusing on the drylands not only mitigates climate change, adaptation, and whatnot, but also this is an opportunity also to develop and conserve biodiversity in these areas. I'm showing you these pictures. These are aspects of the DESA.gov and also parts of Ogumburda and other places in Tigray. You can see the diversity in terms of plant diversity. And such areas, as part of the drylands of Ethiopia, we say these are the lungs of our communities so that they can mitigate from the eastern side desertification and from the western side agricultural encroachment. We have several places all across the country where such dryland mountain areas could be also developed as hotspots for biodiversity conservation. But of course, you can see also encroachment in terms of agriculture going into these places. So how is this to be reconciled in terms of the opportunities that we have? Of course, these are not mere forest areas. There are communities which are conserving this, which are utilizing this. And then, of course, these are the people which we call the stewards of these places. The Afar and Tigray communities for several centuries and even now are maintaining these areas so that this could be also utilized, conserved, and eventually mitigate climate change. Of course, drylands and land degradation. Land degradation in drylands is known as desertification, like what I said, desertification coming from the eastern side, and also, and is a loss of the biological or economic productivity of the land. Most places are degraded. Desertification reduces agricultural output, contributes to droughts, and increases human vulnerability to climate change. The loss of biodiversity in drylands, including bacteria, fungi, insects living in the soil, is one of the major causes and outcomes of land degradation. So the life in the soil system is declining. We say soils are life. With no soils, no life. And losing these microbial communities is also a loss in biodiversity. Restoring and sustainable land management practices can preserve land biodiversity, restore ecosystem functions, and halt land degradation. Very importantly, what is the issue then? Drylands are also characterized by extremely high levels of climatic uncertainty, and many areas can experience varying amounts of annual precipitation for several years. Drylands are extremely vulnerable to climatic variations and damaging human activities such as desertification, overgrazing, and unsustainable agricultural practices. So there is compounding and complexing factors which are directly and indirectly affecting the drylands. On one hand, we can appreciate the potential, but on the other hand, the complexity of that potential is also being endangered by human activities. So these are the issues that we need, policy issues that can be utilized. Of course, why is it important? Dryland supports an impressive array of biodiversity. Ethiopian biodiversity is notable with at least 7,000 species of higher plants, of which some 600 are endemic. Drylands are important in providing forage for livestock and wildlife. Ethiopia is also the center of origin for many crops, and there is a great diversity of cultivated crops, including sorghum, finger millet, field peas, chickpea, cowpeas, perennial cotton, safflower, castor bean, and sesame. Huge potential for even crop development, but to see it also in terms of conserving also the other biodiversity. There are also 120 species of plants recorded as wild food plants in Ethiopia, and 50 of these have been listed and classified as farming foods. We haven't explored all these things. How do communities in the drylands thrive through this, what we call farming crops? So attention should be given in terms of research and development for such species. Biodiversity in drylands also includes organisms which live in the soil, such as bacteria, fungi, and whatnot, known as soil biodiversity, which are uniquely adapted to the conditions. Soil biodiversity comprises the largest variety of species in drylands, determining carbon, nitrogen, and water cycles, and thereby the productivity and resilience of land. The highest carbon sequestered is in the soils, particularly in the drylands also. So we need to appreciate all these things, I have said about that. And then, of course, climate change mitigation and adaptation. Climate change will also impact drylands with models predicting even more climatic variability and extreme varieties of cultivated plants and livestock breeds, which are resilient to the climatic variations. Biodiversity in drylands has adapted over millennia, and the seasonality, scarcity, and variability of rainfall, and can be useful in helping people adapt to climate change. For example, the unique species in drylands provide a genetic reservoir for new species to come up in. We haven't explored very much. Our attention has been on what we call on the humid areas, which are relatively endowed with climatic variables. Of course, consideration for drylands restoration and development. We remember that 2 years back, we had developed what we call the National Dryland Strategy. And I'm taking aspect of this. And we have here, like Dr. Abadi, Gabrahewot, and others who have been involved in developing that strategy. And what we have done is, from that national strategy, every region had also developed their own regional strategies. The Somali region, Oromia region, Afar region, Benshangul, and others have developed and ratified it in their own parliament. We have developed also for Amhara and also for Tigray. We are waiting also for the ratification of this dryland restoration strategies. So the guiding principles are the design and implementation of the national conservation strategy for the land should be guided by the following principles. The state's leading role in dryland restoration and the sustainable use of dryland resources shall be guided by research, science, and technology. If we cannot have evidence like what had been shown, the evidence base for the restoration of the humid lands, we need also research evidence so that we can also say, yes, through these evidences, we need also political commitment to undertake the restoration of the dry lands biodiversity. Restoration initiatives will be designed and implemented to maximize conservation as well as development objectives, and benefits shall be shared equitably among stakeholders. The benefit, if it's not shared, there is no stewardship and nurturing these activities, of course. Inclusive and participatory process will be used to enhance the role of local communities, the private sector, civil society, NGOs, and other non-state actors in the restoration of the dry lands. Policies and programs should also seek to promote gender equity, and all the interventions should consider gender on the basis of gender disaggregated data. This is a continuation of those principles. And then, of course, the biodiversity in Ethiopia is also, now we need to appreciate how this biodiversity has been also developed. Ethiopia, one of the mega biodiverse countries of the world, consists of 12 ecosystems that are recognized on the basis of vegetation types, and 18 major and 49 minor agroecological zones that harbor great diversity of plants, animals, and microbes. From this, which is developed by the Biodiversity Institute, my comment had been that they didn't disaggregate the dry lands as biomes. They put it as rangelands, which is completely different from what we describe the biodiversity of the dry lands. Country of great geographic diversity, erosion, volcanic eruptions, tectonic movements, and subsidence have occurred for centuries and still continue to occur, accentuating the unevenness of the surface. As a result, Ethiopia is subjected to wide altitudinal and physiogeographic variations, from below sea level to the highest mountains. These variations are not very much considered, and most of the dry lands start also from below sea level to some mountain peaks. These are also some description of those areas. And what are really the key challenges facing Ethiopian biodiversity? Conversion, like what I said, forest areas, dryland areas into agricultural land. Very difficult, sometimes even challenging to convince that expansion of agriculture into some of the biodiversity area is becoming challenging. Human encroachment, residences coming in, going into biodiverse areas. Of course, there is also other adverse conditions which are really enforcing people to go into areas where that could have been conserved for biodiversity. Promoting monoculture. You can see now the expansion of even irrigated areas into the dry lands, into the rangelands, by compromising also the biodiversity of these areas, for which they could have been utilized for other resources, population expansion, poverty, and lack of awareness. I had been in the system for so long. we have never been, organized to promote the opportunities of dry lands, biodiversity areas. And in most cases, we were attributing also poverty to the degradation of the biodiverse areas. So anything that cannot address this would be a bit difficult. What is to be done then? Intergenerational equity, invest for generational development. Green job creation, GLI, environmental and habitat restoration. What can be done through these interventions? Scientific evidence-based decision and knowledge-based implementation. How ready are we to undertake all this? Purpose to nurture and stewardship. Do you care by all towards protecting, conserving, and avoiding adverse impacts on biodiversity? Empower communities to nurture and uphold stewardship on their biodiversity as part of their livelihood improvement. To me, forget about the federal institutions, forget about the regional institutions, world institutions, forget about that. To me, which nurtures biodiversity is the Qebele level, the Tabia level. Communities would be, the champions, the nurturers, and the stewards of these communities. Without recognizing these institutions, whatsoever we can do from top will not be holding ground. So these are things that we need to consider. Of course, sustainability, good governance, cooperation, and collaboration are very important. Recognition of local communities, awarding them, rewarding them, giving them the chance to talk, and the role of media would be very important. Integration and mainstreaming of biodiversity about the dry lands, and whatnot. Of course, accountability and transparency. How do we monitor? How do we evaluate? Everyone takes homework, takeaways, but never accountable. And there is quite a lot of transparency in using the dry lands of Ethiopia. We say, yes, these are to be irrigated, period. No, we say no. There are quite a lot of opportunities beyond that. International responsibility is also very important. Then, do we have enabling environments? What is to be done? If there is no enabling environment, would be lost. One, political commitment. I can see that the Green Legacy Initiative is a political commitment. But do we have access to that information? How is it to be done? How is it being monitored? Is there accountability in that? But to me, such an initiative is also an idea that we need to buy and promote, because through that, we can get also more biodiversity coming in. National strategy on agroecological approach to transforming food system. The work by ICRAF, C4, and others who have been working on this is very important. This is a political commitment by both government also and the CGIAR systems in having that in. National strategy on agroforestry, again, C4, ICRAF, and others who have been involved in this scene. And all, consortium members, those which I mentioned earlier on, had been involved in this scene. We have put our ideas, our energy into this, and we want to see that this be implemented. National Ecosystem Assessment of Ethiopia by Biodiversity Institute a great stride in, so that this could be also taken up as a political commitment. Fertilizer and soil health roadmap for Ethiopia, for which our consortium has been also involved. And these are some commitments that we see that we need to cherish. National drylands restoration, which I mentioned, which I'm using most of our material in. Now we are waiting for 2 regions that they can come up with their regional strategy, so that this could be an input also to our development of the drylands. Then degraded lands restoration fund, mind you, 0.5 to 1% of the GDP of this country is now prescribed into the restoration of the degraded lands. Is competitive, but if we are smart enough as researchers, practitioners, policymakers, we can maximize this resource for the development of the drylands. Of course, policy premises by Biodiversity Institute, the 10 policies. I hope in the afternoon this would be also presented, that there are policies that we need to put into practice. Of course, part of that, and multitude of stakeholders. Look, research institutions across regions and agroecological system, both international and national research systems. This is big capacity, enabling capacity for us, so that we can also generate data, evidence for policy making. Universities and higher education institutions across the country at different agroecological zones, including in the drylands of Ethiopia, from Kabri Dahar to Yabello, from Kabri Dahar to Mekelle. All these universities to Samara and whatnot are also, contributing to that. Of course, several reputable national and international NGOs, CBOs, and CSOs, which I was mentioning, working in consortium with us. And then, of course, the private sector is interested in restoring the degraded lands, restoring the dry lands, but with caution. What restoration aspect is the private sector interested in? Way forward, I'm putting this in questions. Let me use my glass. I'm sorry. So in the way forward, which I believe we'll discuss it also along this conference, what should be our research, evidence generating, and knowledge management system, nexus between research, policy, and practice. Mekelle University and its partners, we have started what we call the working landscape restoration as part of the landscape restoration framework. And I believe Jordanus would be also presenting about the regreening, which should be also dwelling on landscape, restoration sites, where we can learn from that, Databases on biodiversity, where, when, and by whom. Do we have that? We can discuss it in the parallel session. Access to databases. Data is being generated by different institutions, but do we have access, for this data? Role of AI on data generation, storage, and retrieval. 2 weeks back, we had the AI conference in Mekelle. Quite a lot of ideas were coming in, but to me, AI cannot replace the in situ generation of data. We can generate data remotely, but verification and validation is also very important. What roles for the man and biosphere reserves? We're glad that our consortium is trying to really nominate the DESA data gathered, but what about other areas? Do we have a scheme for that? Need for a platform on biodiversity that engages stakeholders. It shouldn't be on and off. We need to work with others, bring in, like what we had, the coalition of the willing for the soil resources of Ethiopia and others, and agroforestry. Public awareness creation on biodiversity is the role of medias. How are they to be involved, so that they can generate, they can, promote the data generated to other publics, Can we have recognition to individuals and communities who are champions in nurturing biodiversity? In most cases, we only promote the elite. No, I say all action is at the community level. We had that experience, like Abba Hawi getting, the Equator Award as a champion. We had Tigray getting, the feature policy, award, and other award is coming up. But let's go down to the communities and have these champions being awarded and recognized. And then, of course, ecotourism development. Our proposal some 4 years back was to have ecotourism activities which connect northern Ethiopia from Ras Dashen down to the Danakil Desert. There is so much potential in the drylands, but we need to be very much active. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Laureate Haile, for giving us an insightful keynote speech. Let me just give some few points regarding the keynote speech made. One of the points I just captured is that drylands really face great water scarcity and that they are highly adapted to climatic variability and water stress, extremely vulnerable to damaging human activities. As key challenges, Professor Mekelle has addressed points such as conversion, human encroachment, erosion of gene pools, promoting monoculture, population expansion, poverty, lack of awareness. Those are challenging situations. Given that, as also mentioned that the community, especially at Kabale and led community, that they have a great role as a stewardship. In addition to that, as also mentioned that soil is life, it's a lifeline, so it's on a decline, Besides that, as is pinpointed that there is a need in political commitment, legal initiatives, crafting strategy, and making ecosystem assessment, fertilizing, so keeping soil health, crafting roadmap, and maintaining restoration fund, putting policy into practice, involving multitude of stakeholders. As a way forward, has pinpointed ideas such as databases on biodiversity, access to data on biodiversity, the role of AI on data generation and maintaining platform on biodiversity and recognizing people who have really contributed in this area. These are some of the points. I think you have enjoyed the speeches made by the three speeches made. Thank you for listening. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Tesfaye Mekelle, for your guidance. And I would like to sincerely thank Professor Tony Bernardo for your revolutionary speech on FMNR to restore nature and for it to heal itself, and how it was somehow applied in Ethiopia. And Professor Julian Bias for sharing with us on your experience of the field works you've done, and Laureate Professor Mitiko Haidu for your profound ideas on biodiversity and political and legal commitment in conserving nature. I hope you're all engaged in this conference, and we would like for your undivided attention. So as a sign of your engagement, I would like for you to just give one round of applause. And for those of you who have attended online, I would like for you to react as an engagement in this conference. Thank you. Thank you very much. And now we will have a Tigray cultural food show at the Yiha Traditional Food Room. Please feel free to explore, taste, and ask questions about how some of the traditional foods are being prepared on site. Our organizing committee will be available to guide you. We will then proceed to our 40 minutes health break. Please be on time for the continuation of this program. Enjoy the show and your break. Thank you.
Follow these restoration cases depending whether we want biodiversity or we want the ecosystem services, because services can be also found from a monoculture. But if our objective is a biodiversity, then we need to follow these different steps. So of course it's known that we cannot restore the original ecosystem, but we can restore the services that we can get from that ecosystem. So depending on time, always what we have to think is to bring the emergent ecosystem, but the emergent ecosystem should be able to bring the diverse services that we expect from our restoration activities. So depending on the type of activity, for example, if we do the restoration, we increase the forest cover change, of course. By restoration, we can increase the cover, so we can reforest it, but we can only increase the size of the forest, but not the biodiversity. So if we think of increasing the biodiversity, then we have also to focus on using the indigenous species so that we can enhance the ecosystem services in the emergent ecosystem that is coming after ecological restoration. It's possible, we can do it. And we did this in our experiment in Mekelle University campus, where we established in 2019. This was a site
where it was established, now it becomes a forest. And we demonstrated exactly that reforesting using multiple species, indigenous species, can be done in a short period of time. This is just in 2024, after 2019 planting. If you have time, please come and visit it. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Moon, for saying 20 seconds. We proceed to start presenting this Mekelle.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Adam Sai, distinguished guests and panelists. Now I'm happy to present about ecotourism as a driver of sustainable development. So through my experience, I raised some issues about the ecotourism. Ecotourism, it is a new paradigm, a tourism asset. So when we say about ecotourism, so global debates, heritages, and communities interest as generative features. So when we say as the sustainable tourism, ecotourism, so certain issues is raising. The first is conservation, that is protecting nature and biodiversity. Second is empowerment, that is strengthens communities and livelihoods. The third one is reservation, that is safeguarding cultures, heritages, and identities. The fourth is perspective buildings, that inclusive results in green economies. The last and the new, which is a very important thing, is the regenerative in that restoring ecosystems, that securing future for generation. So during this, some triggering questions will be raised that discusses in this panel. Can ecotourism become transformative force that stimulates, restores nature, empowers communities, preserve heritage, and creates resilience economies for the future generations? In meeting the global trends of the development implications of the ecotourism is the focuses on environmental stewards, that biodiversity and conservation, inclusiveness of economic development, climate resiliences, and ecosystems. The fourth, that is community empowerment, sociocultural sustainability, ethical, and ecotourism practices. So in this contemporary perspective, a transformative mechanisms linking conservations, heritages, preservations, and community resilience, peace building, and sustainable developments. So in here, there is emerging global trends. One, so there, as recent, the first one is regenerative tourism system. In tourism, there is a mass tourism, but now coming changes that tourism comes that is as universe, then sustainability is sustainable, that is what? The subset of tourism, and the part of which parts, the parts of sustainable tourism also, ecotourism, that focuses regenerative tourism, climate smart and low carbon destination, indigenous community, that tourism divergence, circular economic approaches in tourism, slow, impressive, and transformative travel expansions, green planning and sustainable investment, smart tourism, and destination developments. The main important thing is when we develop ecotourism, three things is very important. The first one is tourism, that is tourism as a bureau or as a government or as an activity. The third one is there is an heritage. So heritage, that is an institutions. The fourth one is community. So here, to implement ecotourism, these actors are very important. Visitors need, that is tourism's need. Visit growth and destination expansion. And its other needs is revenue generations and foreign exchanges and earnings. Destination competitiveness and global tourism markets. Infrastructure expansion and investment attractions. Brand positioning and tourism marketing. Rapid tourism recovery and economic growth. In heritage, that heritage institutions and conservation journals focus on conservation of cultural landscapes and biodiversity, protecting of authenticity and sacred heritage sites, preservation of indigenous knowledge and cultural identity, archaeological conservation and heritage safeguarding, sustainable management, heritage preservations, long-term cultural continuity and protection. As a community also seeks equitable economic benefit and livelihood opportunity, genuine participation and local ownership, protection of livelihoods, culture and land rights, respect for local traditions and social vehicles, fourth, fair distribution of tourism generation income, empowerment and tourism governments. So in here, there is a contradiction and tensions. Despite the portion of economic tension often emerges below, economic growth and ecological limits, commercialization and cultural authenticity, external investment and local ownership, tourism expansions and convenience rights, visitors depend and heritage preservations, conservation priorities and local livelihoods. So in here, three questions will be raised. What truly controls ecotourism destinations communicate, governments and investors? Can tourism commercialization coexist with sacred heritage and protection? Are local economic genuine beneficiaries or merely symbolic participation? Does tourism development strengthens or weakens cultural identity? Can tourism growth continues without exceeding ecological carrying capacities? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Iman, for giving the 20 seconds left by Professor Moore. Then finally, we will go to the fourth presenter, Dr. German Iskan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. I would like to thank also the organizers for giving me this opportunity to say a few words about ecotourism development and basically the institutional and policy factors that influence ecotourism development. Well, it's good to be the last speaker. Everything has been done. So I need to say thank you and sit maybe what has been said. The senior professors who have given the keynotes are the key issues that we need to see in the development of ecotourism for sustainable livelihood development. We know the drylands are huge resources.
literature and the existing knowledge, I would like to say a few words in three major areas. One, basically in terms of institutional and policy issues at macro level. The second one on local sites issues, how we can improve sustainability in the ecotourism sites. And third, about stakeholder engagement. This has been also covered in the earlier discussions or presentation. So basically, when we come to the institutional and policy issue at the national and higher levels, what we are really focusing is on the legal and political environments that support development of sustainable community-based ecotourism. So here, we always take it for granted, but when we say community, what does it mean? When we say community resource or area closures or protected areas, legally, this need to be clearly defined and show what is the ownership right or the use right of communities in relation to these resources. So usually in our policies, it's one of the vaguely defined. For example, there is a lot of investment now from the public or the private sector on ecotourism. But when it comes to community-based, communities are using these resources for their daily livelihood also. So we have to have a very clear policy in terms of ownership. And land, how are these addressed in our land use policy? This is also another policy concern that we have to see in relation to ecotourism development. Infrastructure and technology policies. As you know, we need sustainable technologies, sustainable infrastructure also in ecotourism destinations. Financing has been said this morning by Professor Tony. You can invest $2 to get a big return as compared to $8,000, which is the what we are following in the conventional rehabilitation work. So with $2 investment, we can heal environment as well as benefit communities if we develop sustainable ecotourism system. So how do we define the legal environment to make it conducive for this kind of development? The other one is the local factors. At the ecotourism sites, how are people engaged? Local administration, community beneficiaries, and so on. Do we have robust governance system? Professor Mutuku has raised it, also the others. This is key issue. So good awareness in terms of how to improve active participation of communities in their institutions is key. Sense of ownership. By giving the resource to community, we are not going to another problem of the commons. Again, a new round of degradation, unless the people see they have a benefit to lose by doing so. So maintaining attractive also environment is very important. It's not one-time investment. It has to be also done. In other countries, for example, they have foundations, ecological groups who maintain this as facilitators. The other thing is tourist satisfaction. Tourists come to get satisfaction. So how do we satisfy them? This is very important in terms of infrastructure, host community, hospitality, and so on. And finally, the stakeholder engagement, it has been said earlier, there are many stakeholders. We have to create a conducive business model for various stakeholders to participate in this issue. The other final point is maybe limiting over commercialization. This is one of the success factors for ecotourism development. Thank you. These are some attractions from Tigray.
Thank you all. This would be to enhance the I'm not going to summarize because what the presenters say, because the 5 minutes presentation is something. But I will go through it later during the conclusion. Now we will go to questions and comments for the sake of time. I'm going to leave the question and 1 minute for each. So just yours, and I will give the numbers when you raise your hand. So The floor is open for questions, reflections, and comments. Any question from this side? Let me start from that side. First row. So I will not come back to you again. So this row. Number 1. Number 2. I can't see this one because of the light. Okay. Any question from this one? Number 3? Number 4? That's it. Thank you. So please proceed. Number 1. When you please stand for with entries, state your name and organization, and make sure your question or comment is very short, 1 minute.
We have we have one from online. We have one from online.
Thank you very much for Mekelle University, as well as our supporter for facilitating such interesting, such interesting, a very crucial. It's a time of crucial. It's a crucial issue. I came from University, the very interesting area, in the very Atlantic, in green area, even now by athlete, of course. What I wanted to say that excellent in general, the way you present how the important elements are included regarding the diversity, climate resiliency, as well as ecosystem as a whole, ecotourism. It is a time and very important. My question is, what extent will add in stage? I don't know, maybe I expect it's policymakers, implementers, I expect this regard. I don't know how much they are involved in it, because we are researching as a whole. We are coming into the reality, but the implementation is required and expected in policy as well as, even though, yes, of course, most of us are a practitioner, but very important is policymakers, practitioners are important in participating or involving in general. That's why I raise these questions. Generally, a lot, I don't know, as it is, ምናልባት በአማርኛ የሆነ ነገሩ እግዚአብሔር አድሎን ነው ወይስ ተፈጥሮውን ለኛ እንደዚህ የተመቻቸ በጣም ሌሎች ሀገሮች ከውጭ የሚመኙት ዛሬ እኛ ግን በእጃችን ይዘናት የማንንከባከባት የተጠበቀው ያለውን በአግባቡ አለመጠቀማችን ምን ይሆን የሚለው ሁልጊዜ በራሴ አእምሮ ይመጣል ትልቁ ነገር what is behind of it? Why do not focus as such? We are looking at the important and the very issue to be considered, especially biodiversity, ecosystem of tourism. This time we wish excellencies, but what makes it to be lag, not to be practical? If so, well, when we are doing now then, do you reach to the solution? Generally, what is raised at the panelists, especially Professor Mekelle, excellent. Thank you very much for. I got a lot of things, not only for. You put as a whole the crucial of the conference, this research conference. But very important is what should be done for? What is expected for future? No, the correct balance. What a tagbaru እንዴት ብትመጣ ነው ምን ይሻላል in all country wise as a whole. Even some of the keynote speakers from abroad virtually say a lot regarding Ethiopia. then to when we expect that much ይሆን that therefore please would you comment it will be practically to what extent issue to be considered. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Second, Mr. Stark, your name and your organization. And we have only one issue.
Okay, thank you very much. I am Mekelle, and I am from Biodiversity in Department Head of Biodiversity and Ecotourism Management. I appreciate the discussion here and the presentations that have come up, what we have come across so far. Having this, I have some comments and very few, maybe which I would like if we can just discuss more so that we can just articulate further, because it's only a summary what they have presented, so it's very crucial. So for the first in the discussion for Dr. Badi, it was a kind of, we have an opportunity to market our biodiversity. For that, we have a huge, and it seems like an auspicious, but in fact, how about the diminishing and just what people losing of the biodiversity aspect is, can we just what people sustain in the future? And second, maybe I appreciate also all the presentations while there was just protection, increasing and connection, but biodiversities are just in different approaches, while the rest of the areas are just what we call settled by human. And when we try to connect with corridors, there is what we call a kind of, we need to what we call relocate the people. And it needs a huge amount of capital to do so. So I don't know, if we can just, if Professor Tomoro can say some insight aspects on this. The other is just regarding presentation by Yamane from Tourism Bureau. And in here, this ecotourism, to me, I don't think it's a part of or subject of tourism, the whole sector, but it is something that comes when environmental problems just raises by tourism itself, and it's a shift, I think. It's a shift where scientists still want to make an insight where just they harmonize nature, culture, where there is a generation of money. And in this regard, what I want, if you can just insight us, is that how shall we optimize? We have to decrease visitors, and we need just to even participate. We need to benefit local communities, the sector itself, and the government. And we need just even to further what we call build infrastructure. So how can you just get much more in here? The last, maybe not the least, is regarding about by Dr. Gilmar regarding the. Thank you.
Third, please. The third.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate for the panelists. And my question goes to Professor Nuru. So from the point of biodiversity restoration, there is always one dilemma in selecting whether to use native tree species to enhance the biodiversity or exotic tree species. And they have, of course, a trade-off. The exotic species are fast growing and easily survive versus the indigenous tree species with low growth rate and low survival rate. So what is your reflection? Should we promote the introduction of exotic tree species to foster our biodiversity, or maybe the native tree species? Thank you very much.
Okay. Before Dr. Kaspa.
Thank you very much. I am from the humanities, and my question is related to that. I've heard Professor Amituku Haile saying the soil is lifeline, and I also have heard different people saying the forests are our lungs, and I observe that there is a need to capitalize on interdependence. Interdependence. I am here because you are. I am here because you are. And one thing is there because there is another. Interdependence is really an underlying thought, I would say, in every aspect of our life. Interdependence. We cannot stand alone. So I would say, how do you integrate this belief system if we are to uphold the views, the stewardship of the community as a solution? There is a belief, you know, wherever you go, you can see forests where there is church. The rock home churches in Tigray are the sites for our tourism. We see forests there. There is a belief system that maintains this forest. So don't you think we need to think and integrate this belief system into our thoughts, into our ways of maintaining this biodiversity? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kusai. I hope our panelists are taking note of the questions and comments. So I have that we have also questions or reflections from the online. So please, ICP staff, can you help me just to accommodate this by online for the reflection?
Hello, clearly. You can proceed.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, please continue.
Good afternoon, colleagues, and thank you very much, those of you who organized and hosted the conference. Just I have a simple question. Any one of you can answer it. So the question that I have is, there are two opinions about the future. One is the future can be sustainable, and the other says the future is very uncertain. So how can we reconcile, and what type of methodology can we use so that the future will be environmentally just, socially just, environmentally sound, and technologically robust? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Now I invite our panelists to their reflection on the questions or comments provided. So I hope you took some of them. So may I start from?
Thank you. We cannot address everything in one day. Just today is, I could say, the end of the beginning, where we start our actions. So can we walk the talks through actions as of today? Just building up what we have been doing so far. I think that's the best thing. And first of all, this is a nation building, beyond the nation for the global sustainability. So how could every citizen, every society, including our children, our schools, our individuals, our spiritual organization, whatsoever, can really contribute? How do we really inculcate this idea in our hearts and act upon this so that we can save and contribute for the generations to come? I think this is one of the most important things. You can see there is a lot of interconnectivity. It is everything, right from the different presentations
So what's really coming? It is one and one. 100% confident and commitment by the leadership. The action of the community has been there through generations. We need to harness, we need to empower the frontliners, the community, while with the stewardship and the guardians. Looking into the Horn of Africa, its history, its geography, and its sustainability depends on the local community. That's why we have been observing sustainable Horn of Africa. All the biodiversity we are talking and enjoying now is because of these people. Acknowledge the people, acknowledge the owner, empower them, have something for them. To do that, we need to have a strong institutional setup. We know about the biodiversity of Ethiopia. It's so managed as referred to this mandated in Ethiopia. Why not this topic become the action of the pointers in the parliament? How far we legally enforce these things? How do we see the interconnectivity? The major one will be the case of legal pluralism, enactment of the traditional and modern systems. So we need to have a well-defined plan, action, investment, engagement of all parties. So we need to stand in unison, we need to act to realize our dreams. So we need to really work hard, looking for the partnership. It's a global issue, and I hope we will do a lot of things at least to have a better future. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have this presentation?
Okay, the question raised from Mr. Marascience. There is a tourism, so there is an ecotourism. When we say ecotourism, it is a responsible travel to natural areas and cultural identities. So in here, there is responsible tourism. When we say like this, today in Ethiopia, the policy of tourism is changed as that includes all ecotourism. So for us, when there is a destination, so we must know that what I mentioned before, the community, the tourism, and the heritage. So tourism needs economic impact. So we must balance three of these. So, and for example, when we say a church which has more attractive and a lot of tourists flow, then we can put carrying capacity. For example, in our Mata, most of tourist flow is very large. So in that, when the number of tourists flow in that area, it will be disturb the heritage which is found in that area. So we must be put carrying capacities, and we must be put measurements on prices. So the three things will be balanced.
Thank you. Do you have? Yes, very short.
Okay. Thank you. Well, you raised really important issues which we need to discuss maybe further, but I will reflect only on one point, that's on the trade-off. So like if our objective is restoration, and the restoration need to have an objective, should be an objective. If the objective is, for example, to increase biodiversity, which is the theme of the conference, then probably we need to focus on multiple species, not only indigenous or not only exotic, but multiple exotic, multiple indigenous, or a combination of them, mixed. So, but if our objective is to bring back the ecosystem services, probably monoculture could work. But considering the anthropogenic and climatic factors, which one would better adapt or resilient to the anthropogenic and climatic factors? Our research so far shows us that mixed species are better than the monocultures in being resilient to anthropogenic and climatic factors. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to reflect on two questions. One from Dr. Tesfaye on the belief system. Basically, our communities take nature as part of their culture. They have good values about tree, about wildlife, about all this. So basically, how do we harmonize during the planning process? Or even in the policy making, how do we recognize these cultural values when we develop policies for ecotourism? So far, we have a policy for sustainable tourism. I heard recently, last week, there is a new one coming. So probably the ecotourism will get a new section in the policy because it should not be taken as the other tourist art. Maybe one final, which was sent to me by paper, is about satisfaction. How do we create better satisfaction of tourists? As you know, they are the major customers, in our ecotourism activity. So tourists need a lot of things. As you know, some they have only nature. So should we provide what they need? How can we benchmark from other countries to create better satisfaction of tourists, safety? All those issues are very important. As you know, if they are satisfied, they will stay more number of days, more income, more benefits. So this is what we have to consider in planning the actual package.
Thank you all. Just let me capture our discussion. So from this panel discussion, we said that, or we can conclude that biodiversity, ecotourism, and climate resilience are interconnected, although they are discussed separately most of the time. So they are interconnected because without resilience, the biodiversity collapses. Without biodiversity, the ecosystem becomes like a bus full of tourists staring at eroded ecosystem. So in short, resilience sustains biodiversity and biodiversity sustains all of us. So today's dialogue reminded us that collaboration is a key in advancing our shared goal. So with this, please join me to thanking our panelists and thank you for taking some time.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Aramsahai, for facilitating the panel presentations. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our moderator for this session, who will be guiding us through today's important discussions on regreening Africa as a nature-based solution, experiences from Phase 1 and emerging progress of Phase 2, the Ethiopian National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan of 2025 up to 2027, and a special message from partners. So please join me in warmly welcoming Dr. David Kidani.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Following the panelists' excellent and informative presentation, now we will proceed to the next session. We have two presentations followed by a message from partners before we have a lunch break. Since we are running out of time, the presenters will have 10 minutes. So I would like to invite Ms. Jordanos Berger from World Vision Ethiopia, Greening Africa as a nature-based solution experience from Phase 1 and the emerging progress of Phase 2. So please, Ms. Jordanos, the floor is yours. So I may need to borrow yellow and red card so that to remind the time. Ms. Jordanos, please.
Okay, good morning. I'm Yevgenos from Ethiopia. I'm strategic partnership manager and also project manager for Regraining Africa. This time here to share you some experiences from phase one Regraining Africa as nature-based solution, and also to share you some experiences from this phase Regraining Africa, and so it is an emerging stage. Okay. For the sake of time, just I will jump from this background because maybe I have 10 minutes. So the main points I want to share here with this conference team is depends on the relevance of for these conferences. Regraining Africa in the first phase, especially from the last more than 5 years. The main success stories or success experiences to share is the delivery models. There are 3 delivery models to share with you. One is the partnership delivery model. This is working as a partnership from policy point of view, from implementation and research and learning. In the policy level, there was a government and coordination structures, which is support to held evidences with policy and investment dialogues. And also in the implementation side, there were NGOs like World Vision, CRS, CARE, Oxfam, and others to implement the project. From the research and learning side point of view, also World Forestry or ECRA also, or the coordinator for the consortium, and also brought evidences monitoring and adaptive learning from this project. So these 3 partners, research, development, community, and governments were the key for the success as a partnership model. The other delivery model, which is contributes for the success of Regraining Africa, one is this ocean by context approach. As you know, there is no any blueprint solution for every context. So contexts have to be considered during the intervention of development. So based on that, all the determinants, contexts of the areas are considered as the Regraining Africa also implementing in different 8 countries, or contexts, specific contexts also considered like agroecology, rainfall, soil and water conservation conditions, labor, households, cultures, beliefs, institutions, and so on are considered before going to the intervention. So there were a many of intervention depends on the context, like FMNR, tree planting, soil and water conservation, grazing land management, and others, including value chains for the tree-based products. The third one is the evidence in monitoring innovation. So there was a strong monitoring and evidence innovation to monitor the progress and also to evaluate the results of the phase 1 Regraining Africa, and also to design second phase. So baseline and incline house survey was then Regraining Up Index was there. Regraining Africa app for field verification also used. Difference the restoration tools like NDVI, rainfall adjusted green models, and the others are also implementing during the evaluation. And also these evidences are not only for donor reporting, but also used to support policy engagement and future design. So these are the main 3 delivery models for Regraining Africa, which leads to the success. When we come to the outcomes of the first phase is by the project, more than 600,000 households are reached, and 65% of them also adopted the interventions by 2022. And also with the hectare, also more than 954 hectares of land also reached by restoration practices, and more than 300,000 are confirmed they are under restoration by 2022. Tree density also improved from 43 to 103 trees per hectare. And also the cost is varies depends on countries, but it varies from 14.74 in Ghana and also 155 USD per hectare in Rwanda. What is the lessons we gain from this project is, one is large-scale restoration is possible and during addressing diverse drivers and also providing incentives. The other lesson is that there is no any magic or blueprint solution. It's better to matching different solutions and also to current and future local context, which is fit with the current and future local contexts. As the other one is working through the community structure is very important, especially to sustainability. Integrating science and evidence is also really supportive to scale up. So provide fair economic livelihood and production. Okay. Okay, from the livelihood point of view, over 21 value chains. More than 21 value chains strengthened in 8 countries. Regreening also took place in many sites, and also income increment also at household level significantly increased from this production. Still, I'm facing some challenges. From Ethiopian experience, from the phase 1 in Ethiopia, more than 150 hectare, more than 150 households reached in Ethiopia, and also more than 200,000 hectares also practice restoration, different restoration practices. More than 100 hectare communal lands also restored through exclosure. So in Ethiopia, in soil and conservation, exclosure, especially also local institutions, they have an impact for successful based on the findings. The key success factors one is the communal led approach, as I mentioned through the different presentations before. Community participation is very important. Policy influence also the other one. Without enabling environment, it's difficult to make successful projects. The other is monitoring innovation is very, because unless we are measuring our success, it's difficult to scale our achievements. Value chain also has its own impact, especially to support households with income and also sustainable this activities. So I like shea, honey, and fruits also consider and also use for value chain in this process. To some extent, we are trying to see this Regreen Africa progress from global restoration principles. It fits some of the principles, for example, for global contribution, as you know, from the Sustainable Development Goal, Africa 100, Great Green Wall. We indicate it's very native and also has a contribution for this global contributions. A broad when you see the broad engagement, community government, NGO and research partners also participating in these activities, nature and people, it addresses both at the same time, the nature by restoration and also the household by providing household needs, income, fodder, fuel, and so on. From knowledge and monitoring, as I mentioned before, the project uses very innovative and also strong monitoring and evaluation. So from the local context and policy, the option by context by itself is one of the examples for this principle. Now we are implementing phase 2 Regreen Africa. It's also implementing in 7 countries: Senegal, Mali, Ghana, Niger, Ethiopia, Somalia, and potentially Niger. Its objective is to strengthen the resilience of communities across Sahel, Horn of Africa, in the face of climate change and land degradation, and also has its own specific objectives from the adaptation, diverse approaches, and also evidence enhance and adapt their decision making with value chain empowerment and so on. So having this, especially here in Ethiopia, we are looking in Tigray for districts and also in Afar in one district by working with Ethiopia and CRS. These are the partners also now to implement this phase 2. Now we are in the stage of scoping exercise, analysis, community level inception is already done, national advisory committee is already established, baseline is already collected, and also capacity need assessment is already done in all districts. So we are starting also the project implementation. We have also some priority areas from the lesson of regreening Africa. So we are now looking in these 5 districts here in Ethiopia. So in general, from the experience to action, I want to share these messages with you. Restoration is not only about risk, because it is restoring land, livelihood, and local institutions together. Unless otherwise, it cannot be achieved the expected outcome. The other is evidence must guide scales. If we cannot measure change, for scaling restoration, communities need a real benefit. Unless communities get a benefit from restoration interventions, sustainability is under question. So income, fodder, fuel, and ownership the restoration have to contribute to these points. The other is partnership also matters, because policy, research, practice, communities, and government must work as a one system. So this is the taking action. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jordanus, for a brief presentation, as well as sharing the success, as well as what's expected in the second phase. Now we will proceed to the second presenter, Dr. Mekelle from Ethiopian Biodiversity Institute, who will present on the Ethiopian National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan 2025 up to 2027. The floor is yours, Dr. Mekelle. You have 10 minutes.
Slide more again.
Good morning. My name is Mekelle from the Ethiopian Biodiversity Institute. I'm the coordinator of the National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan. The plan period is 2025-2030. It's not 2025-2027. With the given time, I will try to arrange skipping some of the slides. The areas that I would like to go through during my presentation are these 3. The first is what is the NPSAP and why it was important and how it was initiated. The second one is the basis for the updating the NPSAP because it's the third one. And the third slide will be on the outcomes of this, the third level of updating. As you know, attribute to different factors biodiversity. Biodiversity before 1960 was considered as the infinite resource, the resource which belongs to everybody. And because of direct and indirect factors, it has become evident that it was getting threatened. It thus has called through time a global intervention. That global intervention, particularly were two. The first one was to establish gene banks, which started in Canada by 1970. The PGRC, Canada, was established in 1970, followed by somewhere in East Asia and then by Ethiopia. Then the other two, the second initiative was to bring all biodiversity related documents together so that there is a governing convention, which at the end of the day, on May 1993, became a convention text for which Ethiopia is 54th signatory. It's acceded in 1994. Depending on these recommendations, Ethiopia established PGRC Ethiopia in 1976 with the assistance of German government, federal government of Federal Republic of Germany. The gene banks that you see there, based mainly on the recommendations of the findings of Babilo, which this morning keynote speakers were presenting. Ethiopia established its gene bank in 1976, and the photo that is Dr. Tadesse, his name, the first person who established the Plant Genetic Research Center in Ethiopia in 1976, and then in 1998, following acceding the CBD text, it was converted, it was changed to IBCR, including Ethiopian Biodiversity Conservation Research, including animals and microbial genetic resources, which were not built in the earlier phases, and because of different initiatives, it was in 2004 changed to IBCZ in 2013 to EBI. The key institutional achievements that EBI has now, it has conserved horticultural, forest, crop accessions, you see, which are 19,000 at this time, and over 120,000 seminals of straws from treated domestic animals, and over 1,000 microbial genetic resources are preserved at the gene bank, and it has maintained more than 700 live coffee accessions at the gene bank at the present. The NPSAP, the National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan, which I will refer as NPSAP now onwards, was based on the Article 6 of the Convention. It says parties will prepare the NPSAP of the equivalence when required copies from the parties. It says, the article says, parties will prepare their NPSAP or equivalence when required, at the time required by the COP. The first requirement was made in 2002. Ethiopia submitted the first one in 2005. The second was in 2015. In 2012, Ethiopia submitted in 2011. And the third one, which I'm talking now, was the COP decision was made in 2012 to 2022, which we have now submitted in 2026 early. The first NPSAP was that one, the second. The base for the present operating, the base was the decision 6 of the COP 15, which is under the mechanism for planning, monitoring, reporting, and review. There's a text there, I will not go through. this was the Ethiopian delegates, and the decision 56 has 4 goals. Goal A has to do with conservation. Goal A has to do with conservation. It has 1 to 8 targets at the global level. Goal B is to do with sustainable utilization. It has from 9 to 13. 12. Goal C is to do with the APS access beneficiary. It has to do with from 13 to 18, and the rest in goal D, which is capacity building and resource mobilization. The Ethiopian NPSAP contains vision, mission, and four of the goals, which are globally shared by 2050, and global targets, which are called headlines, are 23. Ethiopia has adopted its targets to 19 that are to be achieved by 2030. The Ethiopian NPSAP, this is it, by the way. This is the Ethiopian NPSAP updated. This one has 8 chapters under 232 pages. And the major contents at the targets basis is it has 124 actions, 88 indicators, the implementation of which is to be led by 18 institutions, and the estimated cost of implementation is 558 million, of which 57% is to be covered from the government budget. The 19 targets, the Ethiopian NPSAP, the Ethiopian NPSAP 2025, 2030, I said, has 19 targets, a total of which it has 124 actions. The first target is to do with the planning, spatial planning. It has 6 actions which are to be implementation of which are to be led with 3 lead institutions. I'm not these targets you can find in CBD webpage and EBI webpage. I cannot, I think, with the time, I cannot go with the 19 of the targets. If you allow me, I will pass them. I have to, okay. These are the lead institutions. These are the lead institutions which will lead the implementation of the NPSAP. For example, the first is Ministry of Agriculture. You see 4/13, it means it will lead implementation of 13 actions that are found in 4 targets. Implementation modality, this is the last slide. The implementation modality is led by 2 important things. One, we have the implementation checklist that we are directed by the Parliament to produce. With this, they will follow the implementation of the list. The second is by the biannual and annual reports from the National NPSAP Technical Committee and National Biodiversity Platform. To do this all, this way, these teams that involved in preparation of the NPSAP at different levels. The first is project planning and preparation team. Technical team from 23 institutions composed of 34 different experts. National Steering Committee, 10 members from 15 institutions. National Biodiversity Platform, 131 institutions and members, including the parliamentarians, chairs. The United Nations Environment Program, which is the implementing agency and secretary of the Convention of Biological Diversity, which says overall development. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. IBCECR, for a brief presentation regarding the action plan of the Ethiopian Biodiversity Institute. I understand we rush a little bit. Hopefully, we'll discuss during the lunchtime. Saying this, now we will proceed to a message by the partners. You have 2 up to 3 minutes to deliver your message. I will start by, if there is a representative from Bureau of Agriculture. Anyone from Bureau of Agriculture? If not, I will proceed to GIZ Ethiopia. I think virtually we may have, I forget. Would you please raise your hand? Representative from GIZ. Yeah, right. More. I think he raised his hand. These are others. Okay. So meantime, we can proceed to the next partner. We Forest. Yeah. He's already. Okay.
Ahun. Ahun. I'm there. Yeah, I'm there now.
Okay.
I had to you guys had to unmute me. I was not in a position to do that. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. I'll proceed.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, thank you so much. My name is Christian. I'm from GIZ, heading the climate sensitive innovations in land management program. Dear distinguished guests, participants, representatives of various regional, national and international institutions, good morning or say good afternoon to all of you. It is my great pleasure that I can convey my message at this important conference on synergies for a sustainable future, integrated biodiversity, conservation, ecotourism and climate resilience, organized by Mekelle University and in particular the College of Dryland Agriculture and Natural Resources, as well as the Institute of Climate Services. As you know, many of you might know GIZ. Building a sustainable future is amongst our core values around the globe, but also then obviously in Ethiopia. In line with this commitment, GIZ, in collaboration with Ministry of Agriculture and other development partners, CSOs, etc., we have been promoting the sustainable management of and utilization of land resources. That includes obviously biodiversity conservation and strengthening of resilience to climate change impacts, both in the highlands and in the lowlands of this country. Against this backdrop, Ethiopia has made significant commitments to preventing further land degradation and restoring degraded landscapes. The recently launched Ethiopian Strategic Investment Framework for Sustainable Land Management demonstrates the country's continued commitment to sustainable land management. It was spearheaded by the Ministry of Agriculture. Nevertheless, despite all these important initiatives, the country continues to face severe climate-related challenges, including drought, floods, disease outbreaks, and various pest infestations, as well as food insecurity. These challenges have resulted in damage to infrastructure, loss of household assets, as well as biodiversity degradation, as we all know. One example in case is the tragic landslide which happened in southern Ethiopia recently, which claimed lives of many people and caused extensive property loss. And this is very much a stark reminder of the country's continuing vulnerability and the urgent need for strengthened resilience and sustainable landscape management approaches. With this in mind, our GIZ project, as mentioned, Climate Sensitive Innovations in Land Management, is very much delighted to support this very important conference as part of our broader commitment to capacity development and the promotion of integrated approaches for a sustainable future in face of increasingly unpredictable and frequent agriculture and climate-related shocks. Furthermore, the local and global scientific community, together with practical lessons from practitioners emerging from this conference, is essential for designing targeted interventions that foster biodiversity conservation, promote green value chains, including ecotourism, strengthening resilience, thus strengthening resilience against both human-induced and natural disturbances affecting farming systems. On this occasion, I would like to acknowledge the dedicated efforts of Mekelle University, as mentioned, particularly the College of Dryland and Agriculture and Natural Resources, as well as the Institute of Climate Services for organizing this important event. I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to all participants for sharing their knowledge, experiences, and professional insights. In closing, let me emphasize that GSE looks forward to strengthening future collaboration with the Mekelle University and other relevant regional and national stakeholders. That also includes, say, faith leaders and youth in restoration, protection, and sustainable management of high biodiversity landscapes. This, for instance, as we move ahead, includes the Desa Garab forest landscape between Tigray and Afar, one of the last remaining Afro-montane forest ecosystems, as well as the Haladegi Wildlife Reserve in Afar and the Simien Mountains National Park. Yes, thank you very much for your attention.
Now, let me call upon the representative from We Forest Ethiopia.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Iman West, and as a project manager of e-forest projects in Tigray. So today, what I'm giving an update on our project is regarding actually what e-forest is doing in general, globally. Try to say a few words what we're working on this hour. So WeForest is a global organization that is established in 2010 global level. So it's basically what we do is develop a holistic and multi-stakeholder restoration projects that aim to regain ecological functionality and enhance human well-being. At global level, WeForest works to foster a world communities and the nature together. So we believe also in Ethiopia we have a deep footprint. We don't just only plant trees, we restore ecosystem. So our country level, our operation focus on northern highlands, specifically targeting the most this our biodiversity, as we all know, this is the most important biodiversity hotspot. So this forest is one of the last remaining dry forest in Ethiopia. It's more than just a forest. It's a critical water power. It regulates the water balance for the entire region. Feeding the spring that sustain life downstream. It is essential for unique fauna and flora, including the iconic rivers of Sierra and Ethiopia. So for the people of the both regions, this forest, Desa or Dakar, is the economic platform, provides grazing, sustainable forest environmental stability for agriculture, and so on. So generally, bio is a refuge for unique flora and fauna provided by compost. However, this important hotspot is under siege. When I say under siege, this forest has been invaded the expanding desertification from the lowland side and the agricultural expansion from the highland side. So historically, this our darker stretch over the vast landscape. Today, it's a fraction of this formats of fragmentary activity. The drivers of the degradation are complex, but rooted in survival. Hence, we think that it's very important to conserve this triform. So as an approach, what we forest is doing this, once we understand the forest this way, then we work to reverse this and we utilize strategy to integrate restoration. Our approach is unique because we focus on social forestry. So the pillars are, the three pillars are we follow in restoring this our forest. The first one is the proper governance, where we co-create rules and structures, ensuring all stakeholders understand and commit to sustainable forest management. The second one is ecosystem restoration, thereby as a community. Here, what we do is different ephemeral activities like assisted natural regeneration, enrichment planting, solid water conservation structures, installation, and also forest conservation. And the third one, most important is again, the livelihood diversification, where moving people away from the forest extraction and helping them to sustainability, to get sustainable income from using the natural resource. So apart from this, our monitoring and evaluation strategy center on baseline impact assessment. So all pillars are supported with the learning approach. So we follow the forest first business model. We ensure that the forest is more valuable to the community and direct than dead. So with this all principles, we started in 2018. So we have already reached 20,000, more than 20,000 acres under restoration. We have able to manage more than 20.5 million trees. So ANR and planted, and the planted one we achieved more than 90% of survival. So we are also able to protect about 500,000 tons of soil, and we are also able to capture at least 1.7 cubic meters of rainwater yearly. These are due to our soil and water conservation activities. So we have engaged more than 16,000 families or households providing alternative income. We are beekeeping, sheep poultry, high-value fruits and vegetables. Apart from that, we are also engaged in energy efficient technologies like distributing or introducing cookstoves and solar lights. All these are helping in boosting households' earning, and so far, without assessment, we realize that it is up to 230 euros per year per household is obtained from this support. So besides, about 29, close to 30% of our beneficiary households are able to generate more than minimum of 2.15 BCD. That is a poverty threshold internationally. So thousands are very sustainable practices. We improve soil infiltration. We have also about 14% of improvement because of the restoration effort. And the above ground carbon has also increased by 70.5%. And most importantly, I would like to say that we are able to mobilize thousands of community members for the last 8 years continuously. Even with a difficult time, we were active and we were. So as a way forward, our journey has not been without challenges. We have learned that restoration is difficult without facing stability. We have learned that if the community's stomach is empty, the forest is also empty, cannot be full. So moving forward, we're trying to scale up our restoration to 40,000 hectares by 2030. And we train more than 2,000 households. We try to enhance governance for handover locals and slaves and monitoring. So our goal is to make this our a global model for how Thailand and Comunitani Forum can
and broadcast knowledge. Thank you very much. I invite you all to join us in this mission. Let us ensure that this or that there are continues to this life. Thank you.
Thank you, Amalie. Now we have the last message from Helen Ethiopia. From Helen Ethiopia. Anyone? If not, you have one now? Let me not, I will wind up this session. I would like also to thank the organizers for giving me this privilege to coordinate the session. Saying this, yes.
Thank you, Dr. Dawit. And now I would like to inform you that after the lunch break, we will have parallel sessions taking place in 3 different halls. One, biodiversity conservation in Tigray Hall, and climate resilience in Abai Hall, ecotourism development, policy, governance, and innovation in W Hall. During the parallel sessions, there will be a health break and poster presentations from 15:45 p.m. up to 16:45 p.m., taking place simultaneously. Following the discussions in 3 halls and concluding session will be held in Double Hall. We would like to once again thank our sponsors, GIZ Ethiopia, World Vision Ethiopia, Green Africa, Howling Ethiopia, We Forest, Ethiopia Biodiversity Institute, Biodiversity, Green Africa Project, Rebuild Projects, and Revival, and New Age Project. We will now have our lunch break. Please enjoy your meal and take your time to relax and